As active as well as retired police officers, we all know that you can buy gear from a lot of different places, especially online. But I want to remind you of the importance of supporting companies that support law enforcement. And I don't know a company that fits the bill more than Goals. Their motto is proud to serve those who serve, which they do every single day. And they walk the talk by supporting dozens of public safety focused organizations like Gold Shields. So when you are looking for gear, support our sponsor and go to goals.com. And Goals has done something special for our listeners. Go to goals.com and use the promo code GOLD15 and receive 15% off the next purchase you make. That offer is good until July 31st. Make sure you go to goals.com. Support them any way you can. Use the promo code GOLD15 and get a special 15% off your purchase.
Welcome to Gold Shields. Join NYPD veterans Tom Smith and Dan Murphy. With over 50 years of combined experience chasing drug lords, dismantling cartels, and hunting terrorists. Now they pull back the curtain, sharing raw, unfiltered stories from the front lines and the heroes who stood beside them. No topics off limits. This is real. This is true crime. This is Gold Shields.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of Gold Shields. And as you can see, I'm a solo act today. Dan is what they used to say in the news, on assignment. He's down in Texas doing a impact demo and presentation. So I got the show today. And it's kind of the perfect show for me to just be involved in because of our guests. But first, before we get to that, want to thank our great sponsors, Goals.com, Goals and TacticalGear.com, two of the best companies out there supporting law enforcement and supporting our show. So make sure you go to their websites, Goals.com and TacticalGear.com, to get the best merchandise and best uniforms and everything possible for law enforcement, first responders, and everybody else. And as you're on those sites, make sure you use our promo code GOLD15 and get 15% off all your purchases. This is a special show today. First of all, it's our first FDNY firefighter that we've had on the show. And I couldn't have picked anyone better to be on representing the FDNY than Tim Brown, 9/11 survivor. And not only that, and we'll get into that, but like so many of our guests that we've had before about 9/11 or the war on terror or anything like that, it's what's done afterwards that is just as important as what they went through. And the involvement that Tim has with certain organizations, we'll get into that, is mind-blowing. And his heart and support of families and survivors is unmatched. And we're going to get into that. But it is a privilege and honor to have Tim Brown on our show today. Tim, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Hey, Tom. Good to be with you, brother.
Such a great guest. And you're going to know why at the end of this, everybody. Tim, you know what? You joined the FDNY in 1984, which was probably a pretty wild time to be getting into the FDNY, and I say that because it was a wild time to get into the NYPD. So the city was the city at that time. So let's just go back real quick, not to stay on it, but you're joining the FDNY. Why?
It's actually what got me out of trouble when I was about 15, 16 years old, because I was a bad kid. And I found out I could be a junior fireman up in a small town, Newington, Connecticut. And that got me on a straight path, and it motivated me because I wanted to be a fireman and help people. And it got me away from smoking the weed and, causing trouble. And it really got me on track. And once I got focused and realized that I could be a fireman anywhere I wanted to be, FDNY is the place to be. And so I just had that dream, and I went after it with everything I had, taking the car down to Brooklyn, working out, figuring out how to be in my very top physical shape and how to take the written exam. And I went after it so hard that I got 100 on the written, I got 100 on the physical. And out of a list of, I think, 45,000, I was number 60. And that was only because my social security number put me at 60. But I got in the first, we call it the first class off the new list in 1984, the top 100 on the new list. And then it was only 6 weeks of training. They basically kind of just threw you into the firehouse and said, you'll figure it out. And where I was in Hunts Point in the South Bronx, Mott Haven, you learn quick. And it was,
Oh yeah.
it was quite a different environment than where I grew up.
Yep. And during that time, I mean, not that the fire department is dealing with crime that much, but you're running into neighborhoods and areas that were just, especially down in Hunts Point, Mott Haven, all that, you're running into areas that are just ultra high crime areas, and you guys have to deal with the brunt of that sometimes too. So it's not just, some people think, all right, you're good, run into a fire, put it out, you're good. There's other factors that you had to deal with even back then, right?
Yeah, I mean, they tried to kill us too. And we were, Fort Apache, right, was the famous precinct. That was our area. And we were the man. So they would set a fire on the 5th floor of a building. We'd go in, start fighting the fire, making sure nobody's in there, and then they would torch the 1st floor below us and try and trap us in the fire. They would, you guys call it airmail. They would fill buckets, 55, the spackle buckets full of concrete, and they would try and drop them on our heads when we were, responding to the fires and stuff. So I mean, it was a dangerous place, but the cops and the firemen there, we survived together. We had a lot of the cops would come and have dinner with us in the firehouse just to go off the street and stop getting shot at for an hour.
Yep. There was always that, that thing with the FDNY and NYPD. And you know what? In my 30 years of deal, I never saw it. It was always the same kind of brotherhood and dealing with, different things, but the same, if that makes sense. We always had each other's back and we always were there for each other. We would get invited all the time into the house for dinner or lunch or, whatever it was, because we would have to, secure the street when there was a fire. So we always ran into them and saw them. But the one thing you brought up with the airmail, did you have to, and we dealt with this sometimes, like booby traps in buildings, they would break the floor and then put like a carpet over it. We had to deal with that a lot too. You too?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That we would go in off the fire escape into a building, and they would have cut a hole right on the inside because they knew we'd be hopping in from the fire escape, and the drug dens and all that. They would booby trap them. We had a fire over in Harlem once, and and they're very good over there. They did a lot of fire duty. They're quality firefighters over there, but they couldn't figure it out, and they couldn't figure out why the fire wasn't going out, and it just kept getting worse and worse in the apartment, and it turns out that they had to cut a hole in the back of a closet into the adjoining apartment so they could escape if they got raided, and so we finally found the hole between the two apartments, and it was actually the other apartment that was on fire, and so it took some intestinal fortitude to figure that one out. But there was a lot of stuff like that, crazy stuff where they treated us as badly as they treated you guys sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why we always had each other's back, because we had to deal with the same crap. You get eventually moved to Rescue 3 in the Bronx. And that's, a rescue truck is a big deal in the fire department. That's a big deal. So just explain a little of the difference of just like a house and getting moved to a rescue truck.
Right. The rescue companies are the kind of the elite of the FDNY. They're the varsity team. You're trained much more, and you're using equipment that the regular companies don't have. The rescue companies, there are 5 of them in New York City, 1 in each borough. I was in 3, which was covered north of 125th Street in Manhattan. So I call it the Bronx Harlem Special Operations Heavy Rescue. And, the idea is that when a fireman gets in trouble, we're the guys that try and go get them and get them out. So we don't lose guys. And, Patty Brown, one of my best friends who grew up in Rescue 2 in Brooklyn, he was unfortunately murdered on September 11th. But he would say, the civilians, when they need help, they call us. But when the firemen need help, all we have is each other. And that is true. So we would go in and just try and have the back of whichever fireman got there first. We would come in and just try and have their back the best we can.
When it comes to the safety of law enforcement, first responders, and military personnel, every moment counts, especially in the dark. Streamlight provides the reliable, high-performance lighting solutions that these heroes trust in the most dangerous situations, whether it's a car stop, navigating dark alleyways, or exploring abandoned buildings. With Streamlight by their side, our heroes can tackle challenges with confidence, knowing they have the power of advanced lighting technology to guide them. From the first responders on the front lines to the law enforcement officers ensuring our safety, Streamlight is there to make every mission a little easier and much safer. Join us in supporting those who protect us. Visit Streamlight.com to discover how you can be part of the team keeping our heroes safe. Because when they shine, we all shine.
Have you ever wished you could go back in time and see the events that shape the true crime cases that fascinate you? With newspapers.com, it's like having a time machine to the past. Dive into more than 1 billion newspaper pages from 1690 to 2025 and relive the headlines that shocked entire towns. Explore newspapers from the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and beyond with a simple search. Read the breaking news as it happened, crime scene reports, witness testimonies, and courtroom drama. Explore forgotten clues and see how the media shaped the narrative of infamous cases. But it's not just the major stories. Newspapers.com lets you dig into local mysteries, missing persons reports, and the small-town scandals that history forgot. It's the closest you can get to being there when it all unfolded. So, if you're ready to dig deeper into the crimes that keep you up at night, start your journey today at newspapers.com. Use the code GOLDSHIELDS for an exclusive 20% discount on your subscription.
Yep. It's we have our ESU, which is, our elites. You have your rescue trucks. That's what I mean, everyone. It's so similar in what we need from each other, just different names. But you mentioned, obviously, September 11th, and I want to get into it because of a couple of reasons. One, it's a topic, and we've discussed this, Tim, that shouldn't go away. People shouldn't get sick of hearing about it or having shows about it or hearing stories about it, because we brand the Never Forget slogan on T-shirts and bumper stickers and all that, but too many people have. And we made it a point to make sure people remember it and keep remembering it, because there's always another story. 24 years later, you still hear new stories about that day and things that happened. And then when we met and we spoke and I heard your story, it was chilling. It was a firsthand account of something I haven't heard. And that's what I want to touch on now. That day, those events, and then we'll get into the impact of it. But Tim, take us, the morning, Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001. Take us through your story and what happened that day.
Yeah, Tom. So I spent 7 years in Rescue 3 in the Bronx Harlem Fire Department, and I had become friendly with Mayor Giuliani and his team, and they had a new office called the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, and they had been after me for a couple of years to go there. And finally, in 1998, I went to that office. I got promoted within that group. There were about 15 first responders who would go to different various emergencies around the city, representing the mayor and helping coordinate up to 15, 20, 25 different entities. For example, at a major water main break, something like that, we were rarely the incident commander, but we were the coordinator of the incident, and whether it was the PD chief or fire chief who was the incident commander, we would support them. And so I was a supervisor within that group. Our office was 7 World Trade Center. I went in that morning on September 11th to the 3rd floor, which was the cafeteria, and I got my Cheerios and my hot tea and orange juice. And back then, some of your listeners may remember that we used to have something called newspapers because we didn't have smartphones.
Amen.
So I bought all the local papers, and I would sit there and go through them and read the current events, figure out if there's anything in there that would affect us, that would affect the mayor's office or the fire department or police department. And I was reading those papers, eating my Cheerios when the first plane hit the North Tower. I didn't hear it or see it. The North Tower was directly across from our building. The people who were sitting at the glass could see that a plane hit the tower, and the power went out in the building. And at the same time, all these people at the front row of tables jumped up and started running toward the exit. And I actually had to grab one young lady by the shoulders and stop her and get her to focus on me and look in my eyes. And I said, "What happened?" And she said, "A plane just hit the tower." And that was the first I knew of it. I went to the 23rd floor, which was our office, a brand new command center with a listening post. We call it Watch Command. And of course, all the radios were screaming. The phones were ringing off the hook. The supervisor there was Mike Lee, my peer, my colleague, and my friend. And I yelled across the room, the Watch Command room, "Mike, full activation," and he gave me the thumbs up. And that means they had to make about 150 phone calls as quickly as they could to bring in our federal, state, local, and private sector partners to man the command center. I ran over to the actual command center, the big, huge room with like Star Wars computer screens and television screens, 150 workstations. And that's where that room would be occupied pretty quickly by people coming in representing everything in the city, in support of the big incident commander, who was the mayor. So that was the idea, was to have everything at the mayor's fingertips with this emerging disaster. And I yelled, Mike Berkowitz was there. He was a supervisor, and I yelled full activation. He gave me the thumbs up. I grabbed my radios. I had a PD radio, I had an FD radio, and I had an OEM mayor's office radio. And I put the police and fire in my back pockets and held on to the OEM radio in my hand. I went to my car. My job was to go to the command posts. So I went to my car on DC Street, like undercover police car kind of car, Crown Vic, and took my tie and my jacket, my dress shirt off, and put on my mayor's office windbreaker, my heavy leather boots, and they made us wear these stupid green helmets. I don't know if you remember that, but it was embarrassing. And so they wanted everybody to know who we were. So I wanted to take a minute before I went into the command post in the lobby of the North Tower. We're trained to look at 3 sides of a building that's under destruction before we go into the building, so we have a current size up. And I wanted to take just a minute to do what I could to look at the tower and see what I could see. And when I looked out, I had to go up an exterior staircase, concrete staircase from, I call it street level to plaza level. And there was, that staircase was empty at this time. And I ran up it because that's what we do. You're a cop, you're a fireman, you're military, EMS, you run toward people that need help. So I'm running up toward the building that's now been hit by a plane. And I looked out over the plaza, and it was strewn with debris, building parts, plane parts. And I started to question my original thought that it was a small plane because of the size of the debris. And I went into the building at that plaza level, into the North Tower, and there was an escalator there that went down to the street level lobby, which was where the command post was. And so I had to go down that escalator, but there were hundreds of civilians going down that escalator to escape. And I saw something that gave me hope. And that was that people weren't trampling each other. They weren't pushing each other out of the way. They weren't panicking. For every person that was obese or pregnant or disabled or injured, there were 4 or 5 office workers helping that person. And I said, no matter what happens today, we're going to be okay, because that is the true spirit of humanity. We help each other. That 95 or 99% of people will help you if you get in trouble. And that was happening right in front of me. I got on that escalator in that crowd. It was like a funnel. And as I'm going down the escalator, the lobby begins to reveal itself to me, this huge, huge lobby. I looked out over the lobby, and I could see hundreds of firefighters, police officers, paramedics, awaiting their orders to go up, right? Especially the firemen. And the firemen had all their gear on. They say 60 pounds of gear. Well, on this morning, it was much more than that, because they took every firefighter took extra equipment with them, because they knew it would take an hour to get back down if they needed something. So they would take extra air tanks, and they'd take extra tools and all that. So I would say each firefighter had around 100 pounds of equipment, and had their protective gear with the yellow stripes on it. And in that moment, I had a moment of humor, because I had to do something firemen really don't like to do. And I had to admit that the cops were right about something. And because what I was seeing, looking out over the lobby, was all these firefighters in their protective gear with the yellow stripes, and the cops call us bumblebees, because when you step back and look at it, it looks like a hive of bumblebees. And I was like, oh, that's what the cops are talking about.
Oh, man.
Oh,
But it's true.
it is true. And the bumblebees are here, and I wind up calling that the hive of heroes over the years, because that's where I was witnessing. And I got to the bottom of the escalator, and right there in the lobby was a fireman right next to me. And I looked up at his face, and it was my very good friend, firefighter Chris Blackwell, who I worked with in Rescue 3 for 7 years. And Chris was like a real brother to me. We were on the same shift. We went to horrific events together. We saved a lot of people together. And not only was Chris this caricature of a ghetto fireman. His gear was all burned up. His helmet was so burned up it sat sideways on his, crooked on his head. And we didn't really follow the rules so much up there, so he was a little unshaven, and his face was smudged with soot and smoke because we were pretty busy. They did a lot of runs and went to a lot of fires. And Chris and I, one more thing, Chris not only was this badass firefighter in the South Bronx and Harlem, but when he went home to Connecticut, he was a paramedic in his local community, because that's what we do, right? We are people of service. And I know a lot of cops, especially in ESU, who are also volunteer firefighters in their hometown. So anytime we had a patient from a building fire, from a car crash, from a building collapse, and especially if that patient was a child, we always tried to find Chris Blackwell and put that patient in his hands, because we knew in his hands that child would have the best chance at life. And so that was Chris Blackwell. And we always greeted each other the same way, no matter what the situation. So on this horrible morning, we took 2 seconds to say hello to each other. And we kind of stood right across from each other and came to attention. And with his hand, he made a big arc around. He went to the corner of his mouth where he had the unlit stub of a cigar. And he took it out and he put it down at his side. And we both leaned in from the waist, kissed on the lips, came back to attention, and he put the cigar back in his mouth. And we did that for 2 reasons. We did that because we truly loved each other like real brothers, but we loved to watch the reaction of the firemen and the cops around us when we kissed on the lips in this moment. And we thought it was a bit hilarious. But after we did that, it got very serious. And he said to me, "Timmy, this is really bad." I said, "I know, Chris. Be careful. I love you." He said, "I love you too." And then he turned around and he went in the stairwell and he went up. Right? Chris did not have to do that. He could have taken off his helmet, turned around, and went home to his loving wife and children. But he didn't. He chose to go up because people needed his help. Right? Why? And this is a question I've asked myself for 25 years now, 24 years. Well, he did it because he's brave and courageous. We know that. He did it because he took an oath 15 years earlier. And in that oath, he said that he's willing to give his life for his friend, for his neighbor, even for someone he doesn't know. So what Chris was doing in this moment was fulfilling the oath he had taken in deed, in action, and showing that he meant what he said when he took that oath. And the more I thought about it and read about it, I realized that what firefighter Chris Blackwell did that morning, as a last act of his life, was perform an act of the greatest love, because that's what it says in the Bible. And, I wear it right on my wrist here, right? The quote from the Bible, John 15:13, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid out his life for his friends," right? And Chris is the example I use. That morning, what every police officer, what every firefighter, paramedics did that morning, right? 72 law enforcement, 343 firefighters, EMT, paramedics. Every one of them, as the last act of their lives, performed acts of the greatest love and gave their lives so that others would live. And that's what everyone did that morning. It is the greatest love that all of them showed us. Someone yelled my name across the hive of heroes, and I looked over, and it was my best friend, Captain Terry Hatton, the captain of Rescue 1, and the elite, and he was the boss of that company because he was that good, and he was experienced. He grew up in Rescue 2 in Brooklyn. He learned the craft in Rescue 2 in Brooklyn, and he was also very smart. He was always thinking 6, 7, 8 steps ahead of everybody else. He was just that good, and that's why the leadership of the city and of the fire department put him in that spot, because they trusted him. And he was being groomed to be the chief of department one day. I'm sure he would have been if he had survived. But I ran over to my best friend. He was 6'4", 6'5", and he put his arms out, and I wrapped my arms like around his chest because he was so much bigger than me, and he came down over the top of me, and I was completely lost in his hug, because he was such a big guy. And he squeezed me tight to his chest, and he kissed me on my right cheek, and he said in my ear, "I love you, brother. I may never see you again." And I told him I loved him, and I kind of blew off what he said to me, because we had done so much together over the years. We were very good at what we did, in very dangerous situations. And we always had each other's back. And so when he said those words to me, I kind of blew him off. Like, yeah, be careful. I love you. I'll see you after. And he grabbed his men, and they went in the stairwell, and they went up, the same as Chris Blackwell, to fulfill the oath each one of them had taken, and to individually perform acts of the greatest love as the last acts of their lives. It's the last time I saw my best friend, Captain Terry Hatton, Rescue 1. The second plane hit. We gathered up in the North Tower lobby, the leadership, the mayor's office, the leadership of fire, police, EMS, to try and put a quick plan together. How are we going to handle this? And we split into groups. I went with Assistant Chief Burns, I representing the mayor, Assistant Chief Donald Burns representing the fire department, to be the incident commander of the South Tower disaster. He was my very good friend. I knew him for a long time. Another big Irish guy with the steely blue eyes and red rosy cheeks. He had 41 years in the New York City Fire Department. Probably the most experienced and respected chief in the fire department at that time. And we ran to the South Tower together. And I said, "Chief, you need me to do? What do you need me to do?" He said, "There's not much you and I can do." He said, we are at war. Do your best and be careful. I've ordered 5 alarms for the South Tower, but the first 5 alarms are going to the North Tower first. So we're going to get the second 5 alarms, meaning the fire engines and fire trucks and rescue companies are going to come from Staten Island and the other side of Brooklyn and Queens and the North Bronx. So it was going to take a while for our guys to get to the South Tower. So I saluted him, and a woman was kind of screaming to us in a panic. She was a Port Authority employee who ran the complex, and she was screaming that there were people trapped in an elevator. So the chief gave me the nod, go with her. He went to the command post. I went with her. She took me to this one elevator car in the elevator lobby area. And the hoistway doors were open so you could see into the shaft, but the elevator car had not come down, right? So just at the top of the opening, you could see into the elevator car itself, and you could see dozens of people. You could see their feet. And I remember seeing the men's suit jackets and dress shirts as they were leaning down, trying to open that opening up, open that gap up, so that they had enough room to get out. They were trapped in that elevator. I didn't know it at the time, Tom, but that elevator car had free-fallen 70 floors, because when Flight 175 came in, it snapped the cable. And so they had just taken the 70-story free fall, thinking they were dead. But the emergency brakes worked the way they were supposed to, and latched onto that car and stopped it before it hit the concrete and killed them. But now those emergency brakes were locked onto that car, and it was stuck there. No human strength was going to move it. In addition to all of this, these poor people, the elevator shaft, the concrete below them, the elevator pit, was full of jet fuel, and it was on fire, and they were getting burned, like they were at a barbecue. And what they needed was a real fireman, not a mayor's office guy, right? They needed someone with the tools and equipment and foam or water or something to put the fire out, and, protective equipment, and the experience and the knowledge and the intestinal fortitude to save their lives. And so I felt in that moment very, very inadequate. for what they needed. So I started screening for fire extinguishers for people in the house hose, we call it. Um, just to try and put that fire out or knock it down a little bit so they weren't getting burned. And when I turned to my right to see someone or something to help, my shoulder hit someone, and I looked over. It was a bumblebee, and I looked up at his face. It was firefighter Michael Lynch from Ladder 4, who I knew, and he squeezed my shoulder because I think he saw the look of horror and frustration and helplessness in my face, and he wanted to reassure me. Right? He's a young guy, a young fireman, reassuring the old guy. But I believed him and I trusted him, and he was actually a fireman. He had all his equipment on. He had his protective gear. He had everything, and he was already, he squeezed my shoulder. He said, "Timmy, I got it." And what he was saying is, I'm going to fix this. Right. I see those people are in trouble. I'm going to figure out in my head how to put that fire out and how to open that opening up and save these people's lives. Right. So later I told, he saved at least 3 women because they identify his photo as the guy that came and saved them. He used the hydraulic spreaders, like he had this whole thing that he did. But we know he saved at least 3 women out of that elevator car before the building came down and killed him and the rest of them. But I went out like a week later, or maybe a couple weeks later. I went out to Long Island to his home, and I had not met his wife, Denise, before. And I wanted to talk to her about her husband. And I went in the living room and sat on the couch, and she had a brand new infant on her lap and a 2-year-old crawling around on the carpet, who both now were fatherless. And I wanted her to hear from me about her husband's heroism in the last moments of his life, because there were rumors going around, about other stuff that was stupid. But I wanted her to know that I was with her husband in his last moments and what he was doing to save people's lives. And I told her that when he said to me, "Timmy, I got it," he may as well have had angel wings coming out of his back, because he was the angel sent to save the lives of those poor people. And he was an angel at the end of his life. Just like the others, Michael took the oath. He stayed there. He didn't leave those people alone. He gave them hope because he was there saving them. And unfortunately, most of them didn't make it, but he saved a few. And he did not leave. He stayed there until his very last moment. I had to leave that scene after Michael squeezed my shoulder. There was yelling over my emergency management radio, urgent, 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 confirmed by the FBI. 3rd plane incoming. It's ours. Impact imminent. 3rd plane incoming. Take cover. Get in the stairwells. Take cover. And so I left Mike at that elevator scene with those poor people, and I went to the command post to find a landline that worked, because we had Nextels then, or none of them were working. But I found a landline that worked, and I called the operator, and I tried to get the White House. I couldn't get through. I tried to get the Pentagon. She told me the Pentagon was under attack. I talked with the New York State Emergency Management Office and desperately requested fighter jets to protect us overhead, because we couldn't do our jobs and help people if planes kept crashing into us. So they assured me that the fighter jets were coming for us as fast as they could. The lobby was filling up with people who were badly injured, and they were impeding our evacuation. So we needed to get them out. So the Chief Burns asked me to go to get the paramedics, and that's why I left the South Tower. I went to get the paramedics, and I found three of them, and the four of us went running to go back into the South Tower with the stretcher and everything, and that's when the South Tower collapsed. So we were on the sidewalk about 20 feet from the door going into the South Tower when it collapsed. And I knew that we had just gone by a door into the Marriott Hotel, the restaurant called the Tall Ships Restaurant. And so I yelled to them, follow me, and we ran into the restaurant. The South Tower collapsed on top of the Marriott Hotel, and the Marriott Hotel collapsed around us, around me. I wound up at a vertical column of steel, and I just held on to it for my dear life, because the wind turns out to be 160 miles an hour where I was. It lifted me off the ground. It was trying to blow me out into the street. It was actually scientifically proven to be 160 miles an hour. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I don't have the strength to hold on to a steel column in 160 mile an hour wind. So I believe I had help from the big guy. And I prayed and said, please not now. And that was it, bro. I think God preserved me in that moment, so that I could be the voice for the fallen, for all the heroes on 9/11. 343 firefighters, 37 Port Authority, 23 NYPD, 8 paramedics, New York State Corps officers, FBI, Secret Service guys. Every one of them did what my friends did and sacrificed their lives for people they didn't know. Heroes all.
Looking for powerful defense without the mess? Meet Impact, a revolutionary line of chemical irritants designed for law enforcement, military, and personal protection. With no blowback, no cross-contamination, and easy cleanup, Carry Impact delivers unmatched stopping power without the hassle. Whether you're in the field or on the street, safety should never be compromised. Protect yourself with the next generation of defense. Carry Impact, stopping power redefined.
Patriot is a premium whiskey hard seltzer. We've carefully crafted 4 flavors that not only taste exceptional, but can be enjoyed on any occasion, anytime. We're committed to giving back 5% of all profits to the core groups we call the backbone of America. We are proud to help those who serve our great country. This is America's Seltzer, the brand that stands for quality, community, and the American spirit.
I don't know a lot what I could say after that. It is a incredible story, but the one thing I will say, Tim, and you are right, there is a reason for things. There's a reason that people survive catastrophic events and others don't. And knowing you now and knowing what you've done since then is the reason. You cannot take away what happened that day, but you can look forward into what you can do to preserve their memory, to help other survivors, and to show that faith is real and there is someone looking over us. Because to me, Tim, there's no logical explanation why you're here.
No.
None. For being in the North Tower, leaving the North Tower, going to the South Tower, leaving there, and then it all collapsing around you, and 20 feet from the building. There's no explanation for that other than there's another purpose in your life. And that's the bottom line. You tragically, and everyone understand this, lost 93 friends.
Yeah.
Am I right with that number?
Yeah, it's probably more than that. It's probably closer to 100. I knew a bunch of the ESU cops too, because they were on the FEMA Urban Search and Rescue team with us. We went to Oklahoma City after the bombing together. So I knew a group of those guys too. So it's closer to somewhere around 100 of my friends.
You know what? And you just brought up something I was just about to bring up. You unimaginably were at the 94 World Trade Center bombing,
93.
the 95 Oklahoma City bombing, and then 9/11. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot that were involved in all three of those, other than you.
And when the bomb went off at the Atlanta Olympics, we were hiding in plain sight there because they knew there was a threat. So they had activated the New York Task Force, and we were hiding a couple miles away. We actually hopped in the Black Hawk and slung our equipment under the Black Hawk when the bomb went off, and we were flying to go help. But the first responders were able to handle it, and we turned around and went back home. But yeah, so I was at all those bombings, and it's on. When I talk about me, it's like I can't believe that's me. I can't believe it.
And that was going to be my next question to you. Is there a point in time that you just sit somewhere by yourself and just shake your head and just say, like, why? I mean, you can't, there's no way you can physically wrap your head around everything you've gone through. Me looking at it outside, there's no way I can. And just wondering how you do that. I mean, how are you, and we've met, we've gone out, we've hung out. You're sane when you really shouldn't be, if that makes sense. I mean, to be honest, the normal person who's gone through, I've said this on numerous shows, and I've said it, on other stories we've told. The normal person, the average person in a lifetime will deal with 2 or 3 traumatic events in a lifetime. That's the average. And then you look at what you've done, and it's unimaginable that you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to church every Sunday, but I am a man of strong faith, and I have learned to keep my mouth shut and my ears open more, and try and listen for what His plan is for me, and what I'm supposed to be doing next. I found out I guess a year and a half ago now, I found out that I have cancer from 9/11. Right, like a lot of the almost everyone that was down there has some form of illness, and I'm okay. We caught it early and everything. I'm going to be fine, but it makes you think about your life, and I wanted to change my life, so I retired from the feds. I had worked there 13 years. And I went over to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation because I wanted to help them help our uniformed heroes all across America. And I decided I need to write my book because I don't know how much longer I have. So I'm doing all those things now. I'm doing legacy things now. It's the last third of my life. I'm doing my best to help the families. A new group, a new cohort, I guess we would say, of people that need help from us are the children of the fallen from 9/11, who are 25, 30, 33 years old, somewhere in there. And you know what? They don't have their dads mostly to give them advice to make connections. One wants to be an FBI agent, so I helped her. One wanted to go into the military special forces, so I helped him. One wanted to be a paramedic, so I helped her. She's a paramedic now. And I could go on and on, right? But never forget, Tom, means never. And these kids were robbed of their fathers. So we have to be good uncles to them and check in on them. And I try not to be overbearing or anything, but I do check in on them if I haven't heard from them for a while. And if they need help with anything I can help them with, I'm there for them. So we owe them that.
We certainly do, and I said that at the beginning of the show, never forget has to be true. It can't be once a year. It can't be, oh yeah, that, okay, no. Because the never part, like you just said, Tim, is the families and the kids and the wives and husbands. They're never, because they never forget. And we have to join them in that. And one of our good friends who got us together, Terry Strada, in her quest and never-ending fight for the 9/11 families in 9/11 Families United, is a dear friend of ours, and you're helping her out as well.
Yeah, she's one of the blessings that came into my life, as are you, because of 9/11. So there's been a lot of sadness, and you can see it in my face when I tell the story. But then there's been good that's come out of it, and some of these people I've met, yourself, Terry, Deborah Burlingame, some really strong women who have been fighting for justice for the last 24 years. Amazing people.
But to everyone out there, they need more help. You could have all the Tim Browns you want, or Tom Smiths you want in the world. That's great. But there needs to be more people involved in these groups in helping and being in the corner of these organizations who all they're doing is helping. That's all they want to do, is help the victims and help everyone who went through this horrible day. Because to them, never is never. And they need the help. And in a little while, I'll give some websites out, but you gotta, just join the fight. But Tim, I have never heard a story like yours. And that's the second time I've heard it. And you even added some things from the first time we talked about this, that you're speechless, and thank God you're here.
Thank you.
Because of not just the obvious of thanking God you're here, but the voice that you are now and the support you are now. Everyone needs that strong shoulder every once in a while to grab and put your head on and get a phone call from, just reassuring them that they're not alone. And it could be 24 years, it could be 34 years, it could be 50 years. The people who are close and take this the way we do are always going to be here. And you are certainly one of them. And thank you.
Thank you
for doing that.
Thank you, Brother Tom.
All right. That's about it, everyone. The point of this show was to get everyone to never forget that there's Tim Browns out there who went through an unimaginable ordeal, but didn't just go, okay, I'm done. I did my time. I did what I needed to do. I'm going on vacation. I'm moving out of New York City. I'm going to sit on the beach. Tim didn't do that. Tim's still in the heart of New York City. Tim is still doing what he's doing, and all of us need to tip our hat to him and salute him and others like him. But being that Tim's in front of us right now, it's going to be focused on him. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today on Gold Shields. And everyone out there, this is the special time of our show, and what a time to put your head down and say a prayer for our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, our first responders, the victims and their families. They need our support. They need our prayers. Please never forget them when they're out there doing an unimaginable job that 99% of this country would never do. They wouldn't do it for all the money in the world. And people like Tim Brown and me and Dan did it for a lot less than that. Believe me. But please keep them in your prayers and pray for them. And everyone out there, don't forget to support us, follow us, be in our corner, thegoldshieldshow.com, youtube.com/@goldshields, and all our audio channels. Please be with us. And we thank you for all the support. Tim, again, it was a pleasure, my friend, and we will talk soon. Don't go anywhere. I just want to let you know something. Everyone out there, please stay safe. Thank you for joining us. We'll see everybody soon.
God bless, Tom. Thank you.
And here we are on our overtime segment, a solo overtime segment, but it's got to be done. You just heard a incredibly emotional, powerful story from Tim Brown. Some of it I heard before, some of it I didn't hear. And it's reminds everyone what that day was like and what it took to pray to God that you survived, because so many didn't. 343 firemen, 27 Port Authority cops, 23 NYPD cops didn't make it out there, on top of 93 of Tim's friends and even more later on because of illnesses and so forth that Tim explained. And I've said this so many times, and I can't say it anymore, that the term never forget can't be once a year on September 11th and the anniversary. It's got to be every day, remembering what happened, taking into account the people who were responsible for it, and remembering every hero that surfaced that day. And not every hero wore a uniform or had a helmet on. There were so many heroes that were regular people that rose up and evacuated a floor, helped people down a fiery staircase, comforted people who were in a bad way and not leaving their side. And those heroes continue even after 9/11 into what's going on now. People like Terry Strada, who is the president of 9/11 Families United, and continuing that fight into the rights of the family members. Tunnel to Towers, all these organizations that rose up because of 9/11, and the people like Tim who are involved with these groups in supporting the people who still need it. And that's not going to go away. The support that's needed doesn't go away after a decade, after 2 decades, after 3, after 4. This will live in their lives forever, and they need people like Tim out there. We have a show coming up for our September 11th show, which is just as powerful and something you will not forget. But I can't thank Tim enough for fighting through that. And I just told him when we finished recording that there were 2 or 3 times that I almost interrupted him to give him a breather, to take a breath, because I know how emotional that was to talk about his friends and never seeing them again after giving them a hug and turning and walking into a different building. And he said, yeah, Tom, I almost lost it twice, during the interview, but he just took a deep breath and kept going because he still feels it's not about him. It's not about what he survived. It's about the countless people that didn't survive and in a roundabout way in the back of their mind knew they weren't going to. They knew what was at stake, the terror that rained upon us that day, and what the possibilities were of those buildings coming down or getting trapped or partially, collapsing or whatever it might have been. But a bunch of them knew that was going to be their last job. That was going to be their last call. But all they wanted to do was help as many people as they could. And so many did that in helping countless people and then giving their lives up for them. And we can't forget them. So please, like I say all the time, never forget. It's very simple. Don't make it once a year, make it every day, and support Tunnel to Towers, support 9/11 Families United, and other organizations that came out of 9/11. Support the NYPD, the FDNY, EMS, all those who ran to the most dangerous scene in a lifetime and didn't hesitate doing it. Support all of them, please. And thank you again for joining us today. Again, don't forget the people who support us, goals.com, tacticalgear.com, Streamlight, newspapers, Patriot Seltzer, all the groups who are involved with us. Please support them as they support us. Fairline Defense, the sponsor of Overtime. So everyone, please stay safe. Keep supporting us. Keep following us. We love it, and we can't thank you enough. God bless. Everyone be safe. Talk to you soon.